Yo, what's up everybody? It's Drewberry, and today we're going to be ranking the 10 Season Pass cards that have entered Marvel Snap since its beginning. That's right, 10. You know, up till this very moment in time, there's only 9, but the March Season Pass is going to mark the 10th Season Pass for Marvel Snap, which is pretty exciting. We're almost coming up on a year of these being rotated out every single month. And these are important, right? I think for a lot of people, they end up buying the season pass, but maybe don't spend money otherwise on the game. I think that's really fair to do. It's kind of like a monthly subscription into Snap. But a lot of people also will only do it if the card is exciting. Because let's face it, the card is why you buy the season pass. Yeah, there's a lot of other goodies in the season pass that kind of, add a lot of extra value. But I think at the end of the day, it's like, am I excited about this card? Okay, I'll pull the trigger. Is it kind of dull? Is it not my style? Then I'll just pass on that one and I'll wait to see what comes next. So we're going to look back on the 10 because let me tell you, there were some absolute duds. If you weren't in the beta, my goodness, there were some bad cards that were released in the season passes. And mind you, we were only getting one card a month. There was no token system or anything like that. So some of this might surprise you. I'm also pulling the original stat lines in using decks that were popular with those cards at that time. So it's going to be a little bit of a blast from the past. So let's get to it. All right, and number 10, we have Nick Fury. So Nick Fury, as you know him, he hasn't changed. On reveal, add 3 random 6-cost cards to your hand, a 5/7. And his release date was in September 2022. He was a part of the Sword and Shield Season Pass. And it was a pretty exciting one at the time because, Nick Fury, really popular character. Everyone was excited about it. Collector was also much stronger at that time. But also, we had a trailer that featured Samuel L. Jackson. So that was absolute hype. That was a lot of fun. And the voice line is still him. So it was really, really cool to see. But the card itself, as you probably know right now, is not very strong. It's not bad. It's not the worst card in the world, but it's a bit slower on the tempo because you don't get a lot of power for the cost. At the time, it was fun to play around with. This is the deck I actually used right on the release day to showcase Nick Fury. And you know what? It was actually kind of decent. The idea was you'd play out your hand, bounce it back if you need to get those collector buffs. But really, ultimately, what you were trying to do is to play Nick Fury on 5, have 3 6-drops in your hand, play all the other things so that Dracula was guaranteed to discard and get the power from one of those 6-drops that are in your hand. And it was kind of legit. And you draw America Chavez on 6 as well. So you'd have 4 options, I guess. But it was pretty fun. Honestly, looking back at these decks that I used to make, I kind of want to try them again and just see if they're still viable. But for the most part, Nick Fury, it was just kind of meh. And again, like we were only getting 1 new card a month. Balance patches were like once a month. They were pretty big, but it was like, you were kind of stuck with that one card, that one new exciting piece for a while. And Nick Fury just died out pretty quickly on me, but not the worst card in the world at all, but it does come in at number 10. Number 9, Miles Morales, who was a part of the symbiotic invasion in October, which the most hype part about this was not the card, but the fact that global release happened, I believe, October 18th or something along those lines, mid-October. It was also a little bit weird because this was one of the longer seasons because so many players entered the game in the middle of the month. Team Second Dinner extended the month to give a few more weeks so that people can complete the season pass and actually get all the rewards from it. So it actually incentivized them to buy it, especially with their first experience being in a Marvel Snap. Honestly, I thought, and I still think to this day, that Miles Morales as the October card was kind of whack. It wasn't that good. It wasn't like that, like, ooh, I want to get this in the season pass. This is going to be super exciting. It's just kind of like a meh card. It actually still boasts a really high win rate. And when I do get to play it, it's pretty solid. If you have the right deck for it, you're most likely going to be playing a 1/5, which is a lot of value. It just is conditional and maybe not as consistent as you want it to be. This is the deck that I used for Miles Morales. It was pretty fun. It's pretty much just your move package. As you can see, Arrow used to have 6 power. Keep that in mind for a future video of mine. But anyways, it's pretty much just the disruption movement deck, right? You got the Magneto into the Kingpin and all that stuff. And the idea was I wanted to move my opponent's stuff to make Miles Morales discounted and then play Spider-Man like that, 1/5. So yeah, that was Miles Morales in October. It wasn't the craziest thing. It still to this day is just kind of a meh card. So that's why it gets number 9. Let's get to number 8. Number 8 is modok. Oh no, how could this be? We're currently in February. This is the last few days of the Quantum Realm. How could I give him number 8? Well, to be honest with you, 8 and on are all pretty valuable cards. I like them a lot. So it was hard to kind of pick after that. It was just those first two that kind of seemed the more underwhelming season pass cards to pick up. But modok, I just, based on a lot of feedback that I saw from other people and frustrations, it just seemed like modok didn't click with a lot of people or a lot of decks. And you know what? It still has consistency issues. Like it's a 5/8, not the most power in the world. You got to hope that when you discard your hand, it's actually a bunch of stuff that you want to discard. And then even if you're only left with APOC in the hand, you already played Dracula, it still might not be enough. So there is some issues, but I really like it in the Hela version, where you just basically play Invisible Woman, then you play modok, and then you play Hela, and you just destroy or discard everything in your hand and get it all back. It's a pretty nice combo with a lot of power output potential, but the problem being that you need those 3 cards in that order, and if it doesn't work out that way, then you're basically screwed. So and it's countered by like Cosmo, etc. So it's not consistent at all. It can be really fun, but it's not very consistent. Hell of a big head, right? But I liked modok. I still like playing modok decks. But it still comes in at number 8, and I think over time maybe it gets better if there's more discard synergy. We'll see. But for now, we're giving him number 8. All right, number 7. This is probably one of the more interesting ones, and you're probably thinking, Thor? How could you put Thor at number 7? It's such a solid card. You can use it with Wong and all these crazy things, lockjaw cycles, whatever else. It's a great, mid-range card, and I would agree. But it wasn't always that way. When Thor was first released as the second season pass card during the Nexus events, which if you don't know about that, it was just a very dark time in Marvel Snap history. But here we had Thor as a 4/6. Not as the 3/4 that you know him to be. And trust me, that 2 power is not what you want. The discount is what you really want. Having Thor be 3 cost means that you have a higher percentage chance of drawing Mjolnir, and that's the whole point, so that you can get the bonus power. In this case scenario, you'd play Thor on curve on 4. You got 2 draws, you hope it's the hammer, and if it's not, it's a bust. So it was rough. People were trying to do Jubilee things. That's what I got right here. It was the OG Lockjaw cycle. It was when it was first kind of popping up in the meta, or people were starting to play with it. You had just Lockjaw. You also got Okoye there, which, by the way, when she was a 2/1, she was given 2 power to each card in your deck. It was nuts. And then you also got the Thor with the 4/6 stat line. Just wild times. But yeah, you were just kind of throwing cards in, trying to cheat them out with Wave, Jubilee. I mean, this deck still kind of exists to this day, but there's just better versions now. Now we got like Thanos with a bunch of Infinity Stones or something like that. What the heck? But Thor, it was just a little bit underwhelming. It wasn't that strong until it got changed, until it got buffed. And now he's a very, very good card. And honestly, the change was so smart. It should have been that way from the beginning. But anyways, it was a pretty fun season except for the Nexus events. If I was rating the season as a whole, July would have been number 10. Trust me, it was not a good time in Marvel Snap history, but the theme and everything was quite fun, and the movie had just come out, so that was also fun. But there you go. That's a little bit of history on Thor. Hey, it's Nimrod at number 6. There we go. So when this is destroyed, add a copy to each other location. I just talked about this guy. And we honestly don't know how good he's going to be until he's out. This is the only season pass that is in the future. Days of future past, to be specific. So I'm pretty excited about Nimrod. That's why I'm giving him number 6. But obviously, this could change. This could fluctuate to being closer to number 2, number 3. We'll see. We will find out. But right now, there's just a few other cards that came out in the past that I have experience with that I think are rated above Nimrod. So I've already talked about this card. I'm excited for it. This is a deck list that I'm thinking of running. I got a whole bunch of ideas. I'm jotting them all down. I'm going to destroy Fnatic. So I'm really, really excited about this. But if you want to see my thoughts and my star rating on this card, go check out my last video. I'll have it linked below. But that's number 6 is Nimrod. Let's get to number 5. Number 5, Black Panther. Black Panther was so hype. Oh my gosh, we just got the second Black Panther movie, Wakanda Forever, which was super hype, amazing movie. So it had a perfect release. It was also, for a lot of people, their first season pass from beginning to end. They had just, had jumped in that symbiote invasion in the middle of the month. Well, this one was actually like a fresh new experience, and everybody was picking up the Black Panther. It was a lot of fun. It's also an iconic character, and it created some really crazy decks. Basically, after a few short days, to be honest with you, people realized Wong, Black Panther, Arnim Zola. That's a combo. That's a 3-card combo to win you a lot of games. And all of a sudden, Cosmo started getting really popular because of it. But a lot of people wanted to try, like Nakia and Okoye to buff up your Black Panther, Hulkbuster, and then Odin or something along those lines, like just getting a lot of power on the card. When really what ended up happening is it almost fits in a Destroy archetype where you destroy the Black Panther and split them into two other lanes. Or you go with like an Arrow play. So Arrow started rising to prominence. As you can see now, she's now buffed to a 5/8 at this point in time. She got her buff. And Thor is back to a 3/4. Leader's also in this deck because at the time he was growing in popularity. People were starting to realize that Leader was super good. But anyways, it was a really fun season. I enjoyed this one. This is the one that I actually got closest to Infinite in, and I wasn't even running Black Panther. I was actually running Deathwave at the time because Arrow had just been buffed and was so good. But I really liked it. And I like that Black Panther is still the same. The data mine version, if you want a little bit of history there, of Black Panther was a 4/2 stat line. So actually had 2 power, 4, and the same ability. So essentially when it would be played, it would be a 4/4. And then if you buff it or anything else, it could grow in power that way. I like this version much better. It feels more powerful, later game, big push. So that's why I gave Black Panther number 5. November was honestly a pretty great time in Marvel Snap history. Number 4, Daredevil. Daredevil was so cool. I loved this season. The overall, it was Heroes for Hire, so it had like a lot of focus on Iron Fist, White Tiger, Daredevil, that kind of gang. And it was really cool. It was also a surprise. Right up until release, everyone was almost 100% positive sure that She-Hulk was going to be the card that was going to be the season pass. And then they flipped the script on us and it was Daredevil. And honestly, I couldn't have been more excited. On turn 5, you get to see your opponent's plays before you make your own. At the beginning, when Daredevil would come out, instead of just the card glowing red, the entire screen would glow red. It was pretty neat. I actually really liked it. But now you just get to see the card and it's great. You click on it. It was different. Up until this point, it was always turns at the same time, and this became sequential turns. All of a sudden now my opponent goes and then I get to go and react to it. It was interesting. It was almost like adding an extra layer into Snap. A very, very unique card that we had not seen before, and it was only August of 2022 when this card came out. It was super hype. You also got that awesome Daredevil variant over there as the package in the season pass, and then all kinds of control archetypes started spawning up because you could reliably play Daredevil and then Hobgoblin or Professor X. Like that was just such a good combination at this time. Daredevil just did really well. I think right off the hop, it found its home in control archetypes. A lot of people were picking it up, playing with it. It was a really fun season. I enjoyed this. It was a surprise card, and it's done well since then and up until now. It's just always been a really steady, consistent card. But these next 3 are absolutely insane. So number 3, we have Silver Surfer, the original Silver Surfer, okay? A lot of people wanted to defend this card saying it wasn't too crazy. It's Brood, it's these other things. Well, now look, Silver Surfer got nerfed, so it's no longer a 3/0, give your other 3 cost cards plus 3 power. Now it's a 3/2, give your other 3 cost cards plus 2 power, which changed it drastically. How many times do you even see Silver Surfer nowadays? Probably hardly ever. It's just not enough power output, and then you probably consequentially don't see Brood nearly as much, or Maximus, except he kind of finds his places. But for like Brood and Silver Surfer, I feel like they've fallen off the face of the earth, and it's because Silver Surfer was the problem. But during his release, he was absolutely crazy. There was all kinds of decks. This was a deck that I got like 50 cubes or 50 or more, I think 60 maybe, in the span of like an hour and a half. Just absolutely insane deck right here. Just like discounting with Sarah so that you could play Silver Surfer and 2 other 3-drops on turn 6. I could play Patriot to copy with Mystique. They get the buffs from Surfer, but then also I can buff out the Broodlings. Like there was just a lot going for a deck like this. I also had Bass at the time, which was pretty good. But anyways, it was just wild. If you were here in December, you know that this just took over right away. This was one of the most valuable season passes to pick up at that time because also the token shop had just come out, and we now knew that cards would rotate to Series 5 after they were in their season pass. I think we might have known that with the Black Panther season, but regardless, you just knew that in December, you had to pick this card up or else you'd have to pay 6,000 tokens later down the line. And right now, as of recording this video in February, I think Surfer only just dropped to Series 4 a few weeks ago. So it's going to be quite a few months until he's Series 3 available, being only 1,000 tokens. So whenever a card is the season pass, you're looking at like 4 months, until it becomes Series 3 and like mostly affordable to the mass public. So I don't know. It felt like a really gotta get this card this season. This was important. These top 3 were honestly kind of like that. Yeah, but there you go. That was Silver Surfer. My goodness. So many decks. This is just one example. There were so many good decks. But yeah, there's Silver Surfer. We kind of knew that he was going to be crazy when we saw his data mine version, but he really turned out like just as good as predicted. So there you go. This is just one of the decks too. There's a lot of good Silver Surfer decks, or at least there was, until the Nerf bat came. On to number 2, speaking of the Nerf bat. In number 2, we have Zabu. Of course, they both got smacked by the Nerf bat in the same patch. So this was probably the quickest card to get nerfed, actually, and it was a season pass card, which honestly, that whole change kind of spawned the idea of this video, because I wanted to talk about how there's a bit of like a conspiracy theory that Team Second Dinner will put out a card in the season pass that's, overpowered, so it incentivizes you to buy it, and then they nerf it later to have a balanced game. Well, it's just not the truth at all. As you can see, a lot of these season pass cards are kind of underwhelming and fairly easy to pass on. And then a lot of them are exciting and fun to play. But these couples were pretty crazy, a little bit broken, I would say. And they're not even number 1. So we'll get to number 1 in a second here. But Zabu, he was crazy. You had the Darkhawk that had just come out and the Absorbing Man. I think a big problem with this is these were higher series cards at the time. So it was a really expensive list to run, and it was the best. It was just dominating a lot of people whenever you could play it. But there was all kinds of other lists. I was running like a Lady Sif, Ghost Rider deck with like all kinds of other 4 costs like Moon Girl and whatever. It was working well too. So like this was just too much discount for the value that it is. Now it is a 2/2 and your 4 cost cards cost 1 less. So it's actually cheaper, easy to get out quicker, but it doesn't have the same crazy discount value that you would get. And this was January 2023 when, again, a lot of new players are jumping on board into Marvel Snap, and they were looking at this card, they were looking at the season pass, and it was pretty cool. It was the Savage Land, very cool theme, and they ended up picking it up, or they were, it was higher in the value and the priority to pick this one up, and then it ended up getting nerfed. I think it would have only been like 3-4 weeks ago. It was at the end of the month anyways. So it's a tricky place. They definitely have to be very cautious when they release these season pass cards to make sure they're not overpowered. I think you're safe if you make it underpowered. Maybe your sales take a bit of hit, but you can always buff it up later. If you make it overpowered, it's going to cause some discourse in the community. So anyways, that was Zabu. It was a really good card. Really cool theme too. The whole season was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. All right, now it is time for number 1. And I wonder if you could have guessed it or if you've deducted to this point which one it is. And it is none other than the very first season pass card to ever enter Marvel Snap. Wave. Wave is my number 1 pick for the best season pass card. I know, it's crazy. The last 2 got nerfed. They were nuts. But Wave has single-handedly enabled so many decks. It's crazy. And she hasn't been nerfed. She's dodged the nerf bat every corner. And you know what? I'm cool with it. It's kind of fun because the idea is with Wave you can cheat out multiple 6 drops or get to your combo a little bit quicker than if you need to, or even better yet, you brick your opponent's hand on that turn 6 because you play Wave on 5 and they can't really do much on turn 6 but play 1 card, but you can play multiple deaths because you discounted and you've been destroying things the whole time, and then you pull over that whatever that 1 card is with arrow to a different location. So that was just super fun. That was Death Wave in a nutshell. It's been one of my favorite decks since the beginning. It's a go-to deck of mine. And this was its first version. You see, Arrow's not even played in here because at the time, let me tell you guys, Arrow was not popular. It took several months, I would say, until like probably October until Arrow actually gained popularity and was teched into a lot of decks, and people started saying, hey, this card's pretty good. Because remember, she used to be a 5/6. But look at some of the stat lines here. These are not typos. I did not miss this. That Devil Dino is a 4/0. And honestly, it might have been 3/0. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure that Devil Dino was a 3/0 and the Moon Girl was a 3/3. That's how crazy those cards were. So they were crazy in tandem, okay? And then also, look at Nova. He's a 1/2. He was giving +2 power to everybody. Wolverine's back to a 2/3. Doesn't get bonus power if destroyed. It was a wild deck. But you know what people started to do is they're like, oh, that's crazy. If I play Wave, it discounts Death even further. So she goes to 4 and then her ability applies, discounting her to 0. I can play it for free with a bunch of other things, and Death Wave was born. So I don't want them to change this card. I think it's pretty fine as is. It is an enabler of a lot of crazy combos, and maybe somewhere down the line that becomes a little bit too much. But you also open up the opportunity for your opponent to play a card, right? If they play a strong card like Magneto or whatever else. So you're kind of saying, hey, here's a discount for you, but I'm the one that planned for it. I'm going to get the benefits. So I put it at number 1 because it's just crazy, guys. Like if you've been around since beta, you just know that this has been the card. And it was the first season pass. How cool is that? That was a big deal. It was the Atlantis Beach Club. It was hilarious, but it was super cool to see like a reward track and getting things for playing games and getting experience. They were testing things. It was very, very cool. The season pass variant was awesome. Yeah, it was just a really, really fun one, and Wave is still strong to this day. So there you go. That is my top 10, or well, at least the ranked season pass cards, and a little bit of history about some of the balance changes and how we've gotten to this point in Marvel Snap. I'm looking forward to every season pass that comes along. I think they're fairly good value for playing the game. If it's the only thing you pay for, I think you get good enough value from that to enjoy the game. You at least get that one new card a month. Again, I'll say this a third time, but there was a time in Marvel Snap when that was the only new card every month. And in some ways that was kind of nice because it didn't feel as, like money hungry. You didn't need all these tokens and whatnot to keep up with the fun in Marvel Snap. It was just one card, you pay one price every month, and that was it. You got all the new stuff. You were good to go. So in some ways I kind of missed that, but I also really like seeing other new cards in today's environment. So anyways, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.